The paper is Post-LayerNorm is back, stable, expressive, and deep by Chen Chen and Lei Wei from ByteDance Seed. Here's the 60-second summary for anyone busy in the lab. Large language model scaling is hitting a wall. We can't just make them wider forever. But pre-LayerNorm, the architecture in GPT and LaMOIR, it struggles with extreme depth. The gradient signal just vanishes.
Right, the deep layers are basically ignored.
So this paper introduces KEEL, an architecture that fixes the old, unstable post-LayerNorm. They add a scalar, alpha, to the residual branch, set it to the total number of layers, and add an extra layer norm inside the block.
And the result is you can train models with over 1,000 layers. Totally stable.
And they outperform pre-LN by over 16% on reasoning tasks like math and code. Post-LN is back, and it might be the key to the next wave of models.
That is a very bold claim. I mean, most of us buried post-LN years ago.
Exactly. So let's get into the details. For everyone tuning in, maybe you're debugging a training run right now, we need to talk about why this is such a big deal. Because for the last, 5 years, the consensus has been absolute.
Oh, yeah.
If you're building a transformer, you use pre-LayerNorm.
It's the default.
Yeah.
GPT-3, PaLM-A, LaM-A. You name it, it's built on pre-LN. And for good reason. If you remember the original Attention is All You Need paper from 2017, they actually used post-LayerNorm.
Right, the OG architecture.
The OG. And in that setup, the normalization happens after the residual addition. So you've got your attention output, you add the skip connection, and then you normalize the whole thing.
Which theoretically is very expressive.
Extremely. It forces the model to mix the old information and the new features really aggressively.
But practically.
Practically, it was a nightmare. A total nightmare to train. As soon as you tried to scale those original transformers past, 20 or 30 layers, the gradients would just become incredibly unstable.
Exploding or vanishing, right?
Both. They'd either explode, you'd get nans everywhere, or they'd vanish completely. You had to use these super delicate warm-up schedules, tune the learning rate down to almost nothing just to get it to converge.
I remember those days. It felt like trying to balance a pencil on its tip. One wrong hyperparameter and the whole run is dead.
Exactly. So the community, collectively just said, we can't deal with this, and we switched to pre-LayerNorm. By moving the normalization to before the attention or feed-forward block, you create this clean path for the gradients.
A highway.
A perfect highway. The skip connection becomes this unobstructed route where the signal can flow from the top all the way back to the bottom.
And that solved the stability problem. We got deep models. We got GPT-3.
It did. It allowed us to scale. But, and this is the entire point of this new paper, that stability came with a hidden tax, a structural tax. Because that highway is so clean, the model gets lazy. The gradients just prefer to flow through the skip connection instead of the actual compute layers.
It's the path of least resistance.
Precisely. The authors here argue that in deep pre-LN models, the deeper layers are effectively quiet quitting. They're there, they're taking up memory, but they're not contributing much.
So we built these massive skyscrapers of layers, but the top 50 floors are empty?
That's a great analogy, yeah. And the authors argue that if we want to break through the current plateau in reasoning, especially for math and code, we need those deep layers to actually work. We need real depth.
Which brings us back to post-LN. Because it forces that mixing, it should solve the quiet quitting problem. But first, you have to solve the explosion problem. The paper does some really nice analysis on why the old post-LN failed. Can we walk through that a bit?
We can, and it's fascinating because it all comes down to the Jacobian.
So just a quick refresher for everyone. The Jacobian matrix is basically the map of how outputs change with respect to inputs, right? It governs the error signal.
Correct. So in standard post-LN, because you sum everything before you normalize, the variance grows in the forward pass. But the real killer is the backward pass. The paper proves the gradient signal decays exponentially.
And exponential decay is never a good sign.
It's catastrophic. Specifically, they show the cumulative gradient magnitude scales as O of 1 over the square root of 2 to the power of L.
Wait, let me just process that. 1 over the square root of 2 to the L. So if L is, say, 100 layers.
The denominator is astronomical. The fraction becomes essentially 0. If you have a 100-layer network, the layers at the bottom are getting a gradient signal that is practically non-existent.
They're flying blind.
Totally blind. That's why we couldn't train them. It wasn't just hard. It was mathematically impossible for the bottom to learn anything.
Okay, so enter KEEL. This is their new architecture. They want to keep the post-LN structure, but fix that decay. How on earth do they do it?
They make two key structural changes. And what I love about this is that it doesn't rely on some tricky initialization scheme. It's a real architectural fix. First, they replaced the standard residual connection with a highway-style one, using a scalar they call alpha.
Highway networks. That's a bit of a throwback.
It is, but it's simple here. Instead of y equals x plus f of x, it becomes y equals alpha times x plus f. They're explicitly weighting the pass-through signal.
And what do they set alpha to?
This is the kicker. They set alpha equal to L, the total number of layers.
Hold on. If I'm training a 1,000-layer model, I'm multiplying my residual stream by 1,000.
Right.
That sounds like you're trying to make it explode.
I know, right? Your intuition says yes. But remember, this is post-LN. The very next operation is layer normalization. So even if you multiply x by 1,000, the normalization immediately squashes the distribution right back to zero mean unit variance. The magnitude doesn't blow up in the forward pass.
Okay, so normalization saves you from the forward pass explosion, but why does a huge alpha help the gradients on the way back?
Because of how the gradient flows through that normalization. The paper does a limit analysis, what happens as L goes to infinity. And they show that by setting alpha to L, the gradient magnitude through that residual connection stabilizes. Instead of that 1 over root 2 to the L decay we talked about,
Right.
the gradient magnitude stays close to 1 no matter how geef you go.
So they're using that massive alpha to just brute force the gradient highway to stay open.
Exactly. It perfectly counteracts the decay. The signal arriving at layer 1 is just as strong as the signal at layer 1,000.
That's brilliant. Okay, that's the first change. What's the second one?
The second is they add an extra layer norm inside the residual branch. So the formula becomes basically the layer norm of alpha times x plus the function applied to the layer norm of x.
That sounds a little bit like pre-LN, putting a norm before the function.
It borrows that specific mechanic, yeah. By normalizing the input to the function f, they stop the activations inside that branch from drifting. This is critical, because if the input to your attention is all over the place, the attention scores saturate and everything stalls.
So an inner norm keeps the function happy, and an outer norm plus that huge alpha keeps the gradients happy.
Perfect summary. And crucially, because the main shortcut, the alpha times x part, goes into that final normalization, the whole thing is still fundamentally a post-LN architecture. The layers are still coupled.
So you don't get that quiet quitting problem.
Exactly.
Now, I have to play devil's advocate here. We've seen attempts to fix post-LN before. I'm thinking of Microsoft's Deep Norm. That also claimed to stabilize post-LN at 1,000 layers. How is KEEL different?
That's a great question. Deep Norm was a fantastic paper, but its solution was different. Deep Norm relied heavily on initialization. You had to scale your weights by, like, L to the power of negative 0.25.
It was a very delicate balancing act.
Right. It works, but it's fragile. It relies on the weights staying really close to that initialization. But we train LLMs for trillions of tokens. Weights drift. If the model drifts too far from that sweet spot, Deep Norm stability can break.
In KEEL.
KEEL is structural. It doesn't care nearly as much about your initialization. The stability comes from the alpha parameter and the normalization. It's just baked into the architecture.
That sounds good in theory, but we're engineers. Did they actually run this? Does it train?
They did. And the stress tests were pretty aggressive. They started by testing the maximum tolerable learning rate.
Which is a great proxy for stability, right? If you can handle a high learning rate, your loss landscape is smooth.
Exactly. So for a standard post-LN at 64 layers, the max learning rate before it crashed with NANDs was about 3 times 10 to the minus 4. Basically baby steps. But with KEEL, at the same depth, they could crank it up to 1 times 10 to the minus 2.
That's 2 orders of magnitude higher. That's night and day.
It's huge. It means the optimizer can take much bigger steps without falling off a cliff. And when they went up to 512 layers, KEEL was still more stable than the standard pre-LN baseline.
So why should the listener care about a high learning rate? Does it just train faster, or does it actually lead to a better model?
Usually it leads to a better model. A higher learning rate helps the model escape local minima. It can find a deeper, more optimal valley in the loss landscape. And we see this in the downstream benchmarks.
Okay, let's get to those. The paper's title says ExpressivE. Does that translate to score gains?
It really does, especially on reasoning. They tested on GSM-8K, the grade school math benchmark, and human evil for code.
The hard stuff, where logic matters more than just pattern matching.
Right. And at 1,024 layers, which is just an incredibly deep network, KEEL scored 58.6% on GSM-8K. The pre-LN baseline, same data, same compute, only hit 49.8.
Wow, that's almost a 9-point gap. In today's world, people fight for 1 or 2%. 9% is a generational leap.
And what's most interesting is the trend line. They plot performance versus depth. For pre-LN, the performance just flattens out, or even gets worse after 100 layers or so.
It hits that saturation point.
Yeah. KEEL, on the other hand, just keeps improving. The line just keeps going up.
That directly challenges the current industry meta. Right now, if you want a better model, you make it wider, you add more attention heads. We've been scared of depth.
We've been scared of it because we couldn't control it. But theoretically, deep networks can represent far more complex functions. A deep network can do sequential reasoning steps. System 2 thinking, you could call it, that a shallow, wide network just can't simulate.
And the paper put this to the test with a deep versus wide experiment, didn't they?
They did, and this was my favorite part. They fixed the parameter count at 3 billion. Then they built two models. One was shallow and wide, 128 layers. The other was deep and narrow, 512 layers.
So same brain size, just a different shape.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Same compute cost. Now, normally, the wide model wins because it's easier to train. And that's what happened with the pre-LN baseline. The deep pre-LN model was a pain to optimize and didn't really outperform the wide one.
Confirming the status quo.
But then they trained the deep model with KEEL. And the deep KEEL model significantly outperformed the wide pre-LN model. The average score on reasoning tasks was 55.5 versus 52.2.
That's the proof. Depth is better than width for reasoning. You just have to be able to train it.
Assuming you can train it. That's always been the asterisk. KEEL seems to remove that asterisk. It suggests that for the next generation of models, we shouldn't be building pancakes. We should be building skyscrapers.
I want to touch on one more thing. They analyzed layer redundancy. You said the pre-LN layers quiet quit. Did they actually prove that?
They did. They used a layer dropping test. After training the model, they just started randomly removing layers from the deep part of the network.
Just deleting them.
Just deleting them. In the pre-LN model, you could delete a surprising number of deep layers, and the performance barely changed. The model didn't even notice they were gone.
That is damning. That means those layers were just dead weight.
Pretty much. But when they did the same thing to the KEEL model, the performance dropped immediately and significantly. It proves KEEL is actually using its full depth. Every layer is pulling its weight.
There was also a section near the end that got a bit theoretical, connecting this to test time training and infinite context. What was that about?
Yeah, this is very forward-looking. The authors draw this parallel between sequence recurrence, processing tokens over time, and depth recurrence processing features layer by layer.
So moving from layer 1 to layer 100 is mathematically similar to moving from token 1 to token 100.
Yes. In fact, if you look at the KEEL update rule, it looks a lot like a gradient descent step optimizing some depth-wise objective. It's like the model is iteratively refining its thought process as it goes deeper.
That reminds me of research into models that pause to think, or thinking tokens.
It's the same fundamental idea. The authors suggest that techniques we're developing for infinite context models could potentially be applied to infinite depth models.
Infinite depth. That sounds like sci-fi.
It's maybe not as far off as you'd think. I mean, if KEEL is stable at 1,000 layers and the gradients don't decay, why stop? Could you build a 10,000 layer model? It opens up a whole new playground.
So zooming back out to the practical side, if an ML engineer is starting a new training run tomorrow, should they switch to KEEL?
You know, if you're training a standard chatbot where fluency is the main goal, pre-LN is fine. It's well supported. It's a known quantity. But if you're working on a reasoning model for math, code, science, and you have the compute to experiment with depth, you absolutely should look at KEEL.
And it's not hard to implement.
Not at all. It's a few lines of code in your residual block definition, maybe 10 lines in PyTorch or JAX. The complexity to reward ratio is incredibly high.
It's funny how cyclical this field is. We started with post-LN, abandoned it, and now we found the mathematical bridle to tame it and bring it back.
History rhymes. We abandoned it for valid engineering reasons. We just couldn't train it. Now we can. And it turns out the old way had some magic in it we've been missing.
It makes you wonder what else we abandoned in 2018 that deserves a second look.
That is the question every researcher should be asking.
A perfect place to wrap it up. For those wanting to get into the math, check out Post-LayerNorm is Back by Chen and Wei. It's on Arxiv now.
Definitely worth a read. The Jacobian analysis alone is beautiful.
Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you on the next one.